Welcome to your Daily Detroit for Monday, July 1st, 2019. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Today we're talking about new census estimates that show Detroit's population is staying flat.
The fallout from that viral video of mayhem on the Lodge Freeway over the weekend.
A new auto show is coming in January.
A gubernatorial candidate who is popular in Detroit is moving to the city and may be running for mayor.
And Royal Oak, well, they're getting a new taco joint.
All that right after this.
Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Repurpose. That's where you can get hired by Detroit's best startups and companies.
Repurpose connects top talent like you with purpose-driven companies based on values, experience, and culture fit. Join their talent community at repurpose.co. Can Detroit's revival keep pace while continuing to lose population? That's a real question after estimated census numbers revealed a few interesting data points. The newest numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau say that the city of Detroit's population dropped another few hundred people in the last year and more than 41,000 since 2010. The city's population now is believed to be 672,662. However, the city's budget is looking fuller than it has in years, with tax revenue up.
Why? Well, most of the city's revenue doesn't actually come from property taxes. In fact, property taxes, income taxes, and wagering taxes from the casinos make up far less than half of Detroit's $2.1 billion budget. And of that $824 million in taxes, most of that is from the casinos and income tax, both taxes that aren't totally dependent on residents. After all, every worker in the city, whether they live within Detroit or not, pays a percentage of their income. Now, this is all an estimate, not a hard count. That won't happen until the 2020 census next year. But shifts are happening across Michigan, too.
Michigan's population on the whole is getting older. Our birth rate is also down. This means two things. First, higher healthcare costs are coming, and there's a shortage of nurses to take care of seniors. Secondly, school districts across Metro Detroit are feeling the pinch. Well-to-do districts like Grosse Pointe are closing schools because there are fewer students. So have districts including Livonia, Farmington, and Huron Valley.
And the fastest-growing communities in Metro Detroit are generally in the far exurbs. Macomb Township, Shelby, and Novi are among the winners. But it's important to note, this isn't really adding population as a region, but it's really merely shifting it.
Right. So, Jer, I'm going to bring us back to the central question at the top of this segment. Can Detroit's revival continue while we continue to lose population? I say no, because I say that that's an unsustainable recovery. I mean, what you would have basically is a dwindling population of haves and extremely poor have-nots. And I don't see how that's sustainable for anybody, frankly.
So I don't know if it's sustainable long-term, but I do think it's possible from an economic point of view. Let me explain why. Remember when we had Mike Wilkinson from Bridge in the studio like a week ago? Couple weeks ago, yeah. One of the things he pointed out that really stuck with me was that, one, Chicago's made a turnaround, but their schools are still pretty much terrible. And one of the things is that they're not really gaining population themselves. What's happening is that there's more money coming in, more businesses coming in, and this isn't a sustainable thing across the city, but as far as the city's coffers go, their tax revenue, if you bring in more employees that really don't cost almost anything to serve, right? Because you don't have as many police runs, you don't have as much infrastructure for people who are in for part of the day and then go back home. That's something where the city could actually start to continue or could continue to see tax revenue rise up. Meanwhile, the population underneath is staying the same or falling.
Mm-hmm. But, meanwhile, the city, it gets funding tied to its population from the state, from the federal government and everything.
And a large amount of funding.
Right. So the more that drops, they got to make up for funding losses that way. So I just, the goal should be, as Mayor Duggan has said all along, to stabilize population loss and start growing again for a healthy city. Because I just don't think that, I hear what you're saying, but I just don't think Detroit is a healthy, vibrant city if it's not growing again and becoming a desirable place and starting to get a handle on some of its problems. I think a still shrinking city with rising tax revenue from businesses and more employees working downtown and everything is it's a tale of two cities, the haves and have-nots.
And long term, I agree with you. One of the things I think will be interesting with the election is Do people hold Mayor Mike Duggan to account on what he said, which was judge me if people start moving back to the city? And I wonder if people are going to hold him to that.
We on the Lodge with it! We on the Lodge with it!
That's audio from a viral video over the weekend out of Detroit. It shows a caravan of cars blocking traffic on the Lodge Freeway and several cars ahead of them burning tire rubber and doing donuts in the roadway. The incident took place around 11 p.m. Friday. It wasn't clear how long the blockade lasted. The video clearly shows traffic backed up behind the lead cars as people exited their vehicles to have a look or record cell phone videos. The last frame of the Instagram story heard earlier shows flashing police lights arriving on the scene from a car speeding away from the scene with text that reads, "They can't stop us." In response, Chief James Craig and the Detroit Police Department held a news conference Monday. They said police are using license plate numbers captured from videos posted to social media as part of the forensics investigation. On Saturday, police said they arrested a 25-year-old Canton man for reckless driving in Rouge Park. Craig said the man was also a suspect Friday on the Lodge. Detroit police aren't allowed to engage in high-speed pursuits against motorists, but they've taken to using helicopters to try and crack down on illegal drag racing and stunt driving in the city. Craig also said Monday that police will begin seizing and immobilizing vehicles caught doing these things on public roads.
So, Jer, I came to a conclusion over the weekend, and it was, after seeing news about this, I saw the viral video, and then I saw a plane flying over my house down toward the Rocket Mortgage Classic golf tournament, and it was flying a banner that said something like, if Duggan were black, he would be indicted for 28 years.
Call back to Kwame Kilpatrick.
Right, because Kwame Kilpatrick was sentenced to 28 years, not indicted. I'm not sure they get the distinction, but whatever. But I just had this thought, and I also had just come from, I had driven past a church on Woodward Avenue in Ferndale where some people were hanging a sign. Mind you, this was the end of Pride Month. I think this was technically World Pride Day. And they were hanging a banner that said, marriage equals one man plus one woman. I won't name the church because, to their credit, the sign has come down. I mean, I don't know the story here, but maybe it was just kind of like some people who didn't have permission. But taking all this into account, I just had this idea. Detroit's crazy, man. This is a crazy
place.
A
crazy town. No doubt.
Remember Shree? How do you like Shree for mayor? In case you're wondering, we're talking about Shree Tanadar. He's the quirky businessman who ran for governor in 2018 as a Democrat. Now he says he's moving to a home in Detroit at the end of July and is considering running for public office. Before you scoff at the idea, realize that Tanadar won a three-way Democratic primary in the city, besting rivals Gretchen Whitmer, who's now governor, and Abdul El Sayed. But he finished last in the statewide vote. Tanadar's campaign was dogged by a series of controversies, including the treatment of dogs and monkeys left at an abandoned testing lab he owned, and a campaign video in which he promoted his participation in a Black Caucus event while eating fried chicken. Many also accused him of secretly being a Republican. Tanadar told WXYZ TV that he plans to move into a home in Palmer Woods near 7 Mile and Woodward. His 5,000 square foot Ann Arbor home is listed for $1.1 million. Jerry, remember Shree for We?
I do. In fact, I remember talking to Shree.
At the Mackinac Conference.
At the Mackinac Conference, interviewing him as we did all of the Democratic gubernatorial candidates. Man, that guy, he's a character. He was back up at the island this year, too. But that guy is a character. So
clearly wants to stay in the public eye.
Oh, for sure. And he had such a huge response in Detroit that I think really surprised a lot of people. He did something that I think a lot of people forget, is that in the city of Detroit, you need to be retail. You need to be right there with people in the barbershops, talking to folks. They need to know you specifically. And he carried the city to everyone's surprise. You even look at people like, a lot of people thought that maybe Abdul El Sayed would be somebody who would do well. But no, I mean, Shree cleaned house. The question that I have is his great showing for that going to translate into the mayoral race? And that is, to me, a real question. I think about just the other day, I was getting a haircut. The lady giving me a haircut was so happy about Mayor Mike Duggan, had great things to say because she bought a land bank house and fixed it up. And it was an opportunity for her to own a home, which was something that, I mean, frankly, the land bank is one of the administration's most controversial programs, all the stuff with that. And yet she looked over all of that and was like net positive. So I wonder if this is going to be a thing. And as always in Detroit, there's kind of like two sides to every story. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think Duggan's going to be tough to beat no matter who takes him on. I mean, the land bank controversies, the home demolitions. I mean, he's been dogged by the woman from the nonprofit, all that stuff. He's been dogged by a number of controversies, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure that that's really going to rate. I mean, barring something, some big development between now and then.
So far, none of this stuff is really stuck.
No, and Duggan has, he's made his, name by basically, putting in new street lights, getting the garbage picked up on time, fixing up parks and things like that, like tangible, just everyday basics, that were messed up in Detroit for so long, he's fixing. And I think that's what people are going to focus on, frankly. Next year will be the first year when the North American International Auto Show moves to its new slot in June, but a new show aims to fill its traditional time slot in early January. The Southeast Michigan Auto Show is planned to take place January 3rd through the 5th next year at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi. The show will focus on vehicles available at dealerships today instead of reveals of future models and concept cars.
The 3-day show will take place on 220,000 square feet of convention floor space. It's not affiliated with NAIAS or its organizers. The North American International Auto Show public days run June 13th to the 20th. So, Sven, you're the auto guy. I mean, I clearly can see that these folks see an opening. January is a time of year where there is not much to do in Metro Detroit. What do you think of this one?
Well, the short answer is who knows? I mean, we just don't know much about this event or what all is included. But the long answer is look, we're clearly an auto obsessed region. I mean, we just did a segment about, illegal, drag racing donuts on the Lodge Freeway for crying out loud. So I'm sure that there will be people who want to do this. I mean, like you said, January is a slow time of year. It's after the holidays. Weather's terrible. So I'm sure the people will come out. It remains to be seen what they have planned, because is this going to be anything more than, just the ability to peruse multiple dealerships at one time? Not really clear, but there are enough people that I'm sure they'll draw some people. I wouldn't anticipate that they're going to get the crowds that the North American International Auto Show traditionally gets, though.
Royal Oak is getting a new taco joint on Main Street. Condata has 12 locations spread across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana. This will be the first Michigan spot. This is a build-your-own taco place with a Scantron menu that has tequila lime steak, Thai chili tofu, and barbecued jackfruit. So I don't know if these are traditional flavors you'd find at Taqueria El Rey or whatever.
No.
And from what I've heard, it'll be open from 11 a.m. till 2 a.m. for that late night drinking crowd in Royal Oak. I mean, Royal Oak's...
They're serving booze.
Yeah, and here's the other... That's the big thing. They're serving booze, and specifically talked about their plans for margaritas and margarita flights.
The address of this place is 310 South Main Street. It's currently Burgers, Brats, and Beers, I think it's called. It's been home to a number of places over the years. It was formerly the old Small Plates Royal Oak, which I forgot actually was a thing. I know the downtown Small Plates didn't close all that long ago. The B-Spot Burger joint at one point. So whether this can make a go of it, we'll have to see. I mean, downtown Royal Oak's been pretty tricky in recent years. You've seen a lot of turnover in storefronts, still some vacant storefronts in places you'd be surprised to see them.
And when we check it out, I mean, we're up there in downtown Royal Oak quite a bit. When we're doing stories in the suburbs, it's a good central place to meet. It's a hot or not kind of spot. You look at places like Atomic or the Office Coffee Shop or things like that. They are always packed. And then there's other places where you could fire a cannon through it. It seems to be one or the other. And there's a lot of changes happening up there too. You've got all those parking garages that, of course, have been the source of a ton of controversy lately. And, they're trying to be more urban. I mean, one of the things I noted was I heard last week that they're going to be extending pedicab service till the end of the summer up there. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've been seeing pedicabs going down, the streets all over the place there recently. Seem to be pretty popular.
There's a new ranking out of the top 50 pizza places in North America, and 3 Detroit area joints make the cut. Buddy's and its iconic Detroit-style crispy corner pizza comes in at number 16, while Cloverleaf Pizza in East Point and its take on the Detroit style came in at number 23. The third entrant is a newcomer, Grandma Bob's in Corktown, which does not serve Detroit-style pizza, but does offer novelties like coney pizza or pies topped with figs and pears. They ranked 45th. The rankings are from an international organization whose North American panel was coordinated by the James Beard Foundation. And I'd like to stop here for a second and note that gives it a lot of weight. James Beard is very highly respected.
Indeed. The top slot went to a place called Raza Pizza Artigianale in Jersey City, New Jersey. Apologies for my terrible Italian. We'll link to the rankings on dailydetroit.com. Jer, which of these spots have you been to? The only one I can claim familiarity with is Buddy's.
I've been to all but Grandma Bob's, and I'm going to have to put Grandma Bob's on the list. They are very tasty places. My uncle loved Cloverleaf. He was a Cloverleaf guy.
Yeah, well, and I've gone on the record, unpopular opinion of, not being all that high on Detroit-style pizza, so I'm...
You like the New York-style fold, right?
I do, yeah, I do. I like a thinner crust and crispy and everything, so I'm all about trying Grandma Bob's. Alrighty, that's going to be it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening to the Daily Detroit podcast. Sure to subscribe on all the things, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jared Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.